Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight, I am going to teach you something that may shock you, something that may unsettle your assumptions, challenge the way you think, and completely transform your relationship with your own mind. I am going to teach you how to trick your subconscious mind, that faithful servant which silently governs the vast majority of your thoughts, your behaviors, your habits, and your experiences, into helping you create the life you truly desire. Now, when I say trick, I do not mean deceive in any dishonest or harmful way. I mean learn. I mean understand the language your subconscious mind speaks and communicate with it in a way that bypasses the critical, doubting, limiting voice of the conscious mind. I mean discover the hidden codes, the secret doorways, the master keys that give you direct access to the most powerful creative force within your being. Your subconscious mind is like the most loyal servant you could ever imagine. It never argues, it never questions, it never sleeps on the job. It simply carries out the instructions it has received. But here is the secret most people never discover. It cannot tell the difference between what is vividly imagined and what is physically real. It accepts as fact whatever you consistently impress upon it, with feeling, with conviction, and with repetition. This is not merely a theory. This is not a philosophy. This is the very mechanism through which every experience in your life is formed. And tonight, I am going to show you how to use that mechanism deliberately, consciously, and powerfully. Let me begin with a story that will illustrate the power of what I am teaching you tonight. Just last month, a woman came to my lecture who had been suffering from severe insomnia for more than 5 years. She told me, "Neville, I have tried everything: medication, therapy, meditation. Nothing works. Every night I lie in bed for hours, my mind racing, unable to sleep. I have come to accept that I am simply not a good sleeper." I looked at this exhausted woman and immediately recognized what was happening. I said, "My dear, you have been programming your subconscious mind to keep you awake. Every time you say, 'I am not a good sleeper,' every time you worry about not sleeping, every time you lie in bed expecting struggle, you are giving your subconscious mind clear instructions to maintain the condition you dislike." "But these are just facts about my situation," she protested. "I'm only being realistic." "No," I replied, "you are being creative. Your subconscious mind does not know facts from fiction. It only knows what you repeatedly impress upon it. Right now, you have impressed upon it that you are a person who cannot sleep. And like the faithful servant it is working tirelessly to confirm that identity." I taught this woman a simple trick that night. Instead of trying to force herself to sleep, instead of fighting with her mind, instead of accepting insomnia as her reality, I taught her to trick her subconscious mind into believing she had already slept deeply and wonderfully. Every evening before getting into bed, she would sit quietly and remember sleeping perfectly. Not imagine it as a future possibility, but remember it as though it had already happened. She would recall the feeling of deep, restful sleep. She would remember waking up refreshed and full of energy. She would impress upon her subconscious mind the memory of being an excellent sleeper. Within 1 week, she was sleeping better than she had in years. Within 1 month, her insomnia had completely vanished. She had tricked her subconscious mind out of the insomnia pattern by giving it new memories, new impressions, and new facts to work with. You see, your conscious mind is the gatekeeper between your desires and your subconscious mind. And unfortunately for most people, this gatekeeper is highly critical, deeply skeptical, and constantly resistant to change. When you try to tell yourself, "I am wealthy," while your bank account shows lack, your conscious mind immediately objects. "That is not true," it says. "You are lying to yourself. Be realistic. Look at the facts." And this objection prevents the new assumption from reaching your subconscious mind, where the real creative work happens. This is why simple affirmations often fail. You are trying to get past the gatekeeper through the front door. But the gatekeeper knows every lock, every hinge, every weakness in the doorframe, and it refuses to let you through. So you must learn to use the secret passages, the hidden entrances that bypass the conscious mind's resistance entirely. Think of your subconscious mind as a garden, and your conscious mind as the fence around that garden. If you try to throw seeds over the fence during the day when the conscious mind is alert and watchful, it will intercept them and throw them back at you. These will not grow here, it says. The soil is not right. The conditions are not perfect. Be realistic. But at night, when the conscious mind is drowsy and less vigilant, when the gatekeeper is distracted or sleeping, you can slip seeds directly into the garden. And once they are planted in the subconscious soil, they must grow. They have no choice. The subconscious mind does not judge or question. It simply accepts and creates. The first and most powerful trick for accessing your subconscious mind is what I call the state akin to sleep. That drowsy, twilight state between waking and sleeping, where your conscious mind relaxes its grip and your subconscious becomes highly receptive to suggestion. This state occurs naturally twice every day, as you are falling asleep at night and as you are waking up in the morning. In these moments, the critical factor of your conscious mind is diminished, and you have direct access to the creative workshop of your subconscious. This is why I always tell people, use the moments before sleep as your most sacred creative time. This is when you plant the seeds of tomorrow's experiences. This is when you trick your subconscious mind into accepting new assumptions about yourself and your world. Let me tell you about a gentleman who mastered this technique. He was a salesman who had struggled for years, barely making enough to support his family. He came to me desperate for a solution, convinced that he simply was not good at sales. I taught him this trick. Every night, as he drifted off to sleep, he was to imagine himself as the top salesman in his company, not to visualize it happening someday, but to feel it as already accomplished. I told him to feel the satisfaction of closing major sales, to imagine his manager congratulating him, to experience the security of having more than enough money. But will my mind not reject this because it is not true? He asked. Not in the drowsy state, I replied. In that twilight moment before sleep, your conscious mind's defenses are down. Your subconscious is open and receptive. It is as though the gatekeeper has stepped away from his post. This is your opportunity to plant new seeds directly in the garden of your subconscious mind. He practiced this faithfully every night for 3 months, and something remarkable began to happen. His approach to sales changed without him consciously trying to change it. He became more confident, more natural, more persuasive. Opportunities appeared that he had never noticed before. Within 6 months, he had become the top salesman in his company. He had tricked his subconscious mind into accepting a new identity by slipping it past the conscious mind's resistance during the drowsy state. The second trick is imagining from instead of imagining of. Most people, when they try to manifest something, make a critical error. They imagine themselves achieving their desire from a distance, like watching a movie of themselves succeeding. They see themselves getting the job, finding the love, receiving the money, but they are watching it happen to someone who merely looks like them, rather than experiencing it as themselves. This is imagining of rather than imagining from. And your subconscious mind is not fooled by this, because it knows you are still identifying as the observer rather than the experiencer. The trick is to imagine from your desire. Do not watch yourself succeeding. Be yourself succeeding. Do not see yourself happy. Feel yourself happy. Do not observe yourself wealthy. Experience yourself wealthy from the inside out. Let me illustrate with a powerful example. A young woman came to me who desperately wanted to marry a specific man. She had been visualizing their wedding for months, seeing herself in a wedding dress, watching them exchange vows, imagining the ceremony. But nothing was moving in that direction in her actual life. I said to her, "You are imagining of your wedding rather than from your wedding. You are watching it like a spectator rather than experiencing it as the bride. Your subconscious mind knows the difference, and it is not being tricked." I taught her to imagine from the end instead. "Tonight, do not visualize your wedding," I told her. "Feel what it is like to be married to him. Wear an imaginary ring and feel its weight on your finger. Feel him beside you in bed. Have imaginary conversations as his wife. Experience the reality of being married from the first-person perspective." This shift changed everything. Within weeks, their relationship began to deepen. Within months, he proposed. She had finally tricked her subconscious mind by stepping into the experience rather than watching it from outside. The subconscious mind can only create experiences you claim as your own. When you imagine from your desire, you are claiming it as your reality. When you imagine of your desire, you are admitting it is separate from you. Here is a trick that most people find absolutely revolutionary when they discover it. You can trick your subconscious mind by revising the past. Your subconscious mind stores memories, and these memories form the foundation of your self-concept and your expectations about life. But here is the secret. Your subconscious mind cannot tell the difference between a memory of something that actually happened and a memory of something you have vividly imagined happening. This means you can literally revise your memories, and in doing so, change the pattern of your future experiences. Let me share an extraordinary example. A businessman came to me who had given a disastrous presentation at work. He had frozen, stumbled over his words, and essentially ruined an important opportunity for his company. He was convinced this failure would define his career and that he would never be trusted with important presentations again. "The past is the past," he said miserably. "I cannot change what happened, can I?" I replied, "Your subconscious mind is creating your future based on patterns established by your past. If the memory of this failed presentation remains in your subconscious as a dominant pattern, it will continue to create similar experiences. But if you revise this memory, you change the pattern." I taught him to replay the presentation in his imagination every night before sleep, but this time to imagine it going perfectly, to feel himself speaking confidently and clearly, to experience the satisfaction of delivering an excellent presentation, to hear the applause and receive the congratulations. "But this is not what happened," he protested. "Your subconscious mind does not care what happened in the external world," I explained. "It only cares what you consistently impress upon it. If you consistently impress upon it the memory of a successful presentation, it will create future presentations that match this revised memory rather than the original failure." He practiced this revision faithfully for 2 weeks, and then something remarkable happened. He was asked to give another presentation. This time, without any conscious effort, he delivered it confidently and successfully. His subconscious mind had accepted the revised memory as fact and created a new experience to match it. This is one of the most powerful tricks for your subconscious mind. You can change your future by changing your past. Not the external past, but the internal memory your subconscious uses as a template for creating experience. The fourth trick is the secret of feeling. Your subconscious mind speaks the language of feeling, not words. This is perhaps the most important trick of all. You must learn to impress your subconscious mind with feeling rather than with thoughts alone. You can repeat affirmations all day long, but if there is no feeling behind them, they are just empty words bouncing off the surface of your conscious mind. But when you generate the feeling of your wish fulfilled, You bypass the conscious mind entirely and speak directly to the subconscious. Think of your subconscious mind as a child who does not understand complex arguments but responds powerfully to emotion. If you try to convince the child of something through logic alone, you may fail. But if you express it with genuine feeling, the child accepts it immediately and completely. Let me tell you about a woman who discovered this principle in the most practical way. She had been trying to manifest a new home for over a year. She made vision boards, repeated affirmations, visualized her dream house, but nothing was changing in her circumstances. I asked her, "When you do these practices, what do you feel?" She thought about it and said honestly, "I feel frustrated that I do not have it yet. I feel anxious about whether it will ever happen. I feel doubt creeping in." "There is your problem," I said. "You are impressing your subconscious mind with feelings of frustration, anxiety, and doubt. And like the faithful servant it is, your subconscious is creating more experiences that generate these same feelings." I taught her to generate the feeling of already living in her dream home, not the feeling of wanting it, or hoping for it, or waiting for it, but the feeling of having it. Every evening she would sit quietly and generate the feeling of satisfaction, security, and joy that came from living in her perfect home. At first, this was difficult because her conscious mind kept reminding her that she did not actually have the home. But I told her, your conscious mind will always remind you of current facts, but your subconscious mind only cares about what you consistently feel. If you feel wealthy, it creates wealth. If you feel love, it creates love. If you feel satisfied, it creates satisfaction. She practiced generating this feeling daily, and within 4 months, a series of unexpected events led to her moving into a home that exceeded even her original vision. She had tricked her subconscious mind by speaking its native language, the language of feeling. Now here is a trick that combines all the others. Assume your wish is already fulfilled and maintain that assumption until it hardens into fact. Your subconscious mind is constantly scanning your assumptions about yourself and your world, and it works tirelessly to create experiences that confirm those assumptions. If you assume you are unlucky, it will find evidence of bad luck. If you assume you are blessed, it will find evidence of blessings. The trick is to consciously plant a new assumption in your subconscious mind and then persist in that assumption regardless of what your senses report or what your circumstances suggest. A man came to me who was drowning in debt. He owed over $200,000 and saw no way out. "I assume I will be in debt forever," he said. "That is just my reality." "And as long as you assume that," I replied, "your subconscious mind will ensure it remains your reality." But what if you assumed something different? What if you assumed you were debt-free and financially secure? "How can I assume something that contradicts all evidence?" he asked. "By understanding that your assumptions create your evidence, not the other way around," I explained. Your current debt is evidence of your past assumptions about money and yourself. If you change your assumptions, you change the evidence your subconscious mind creates. I taught him to live in the assumption of being debt-free. Every time he thought about money, he would assume abundant supply. Every time he paid a bill, he would assume he had more than enough. Every time he checked his bank balance, he would assume financial security, regardless of what the numbers showed. This felt unnatural at first, almost dishonest. But I explained that he was not denying his current circumstances. He was simply choosing which assumption his subconscious mind would work from. Would it work from the assumption of eternal debt, creating more debt? Or would it work from the assumption of financial freedom, creating paths to freedom? Within 18 months, through a series of opportunities and solutions he could never have consciously planned, he was completely debt-free and had money in savings. His subconscious mind had been tricked into creating financial freedom by the persistent assumption that freedom was already his. The next trick is this: act as if. Your subconscious mind takes its cues not just from what you think and feel, but from how you behave. When you act as if your desire is already fulfilled, you send powerful signals to your subconscious that bypass conscious resistance. This does not mean pretending in a delusional or irresponsible way. It means adopting the natural behaviors, attitudes, and responses of someone who already has what you desire. A woman came to me who desperately wanted to find love but had been single for many years. I have tried everything, she said. Social events, asking friends to set me up, nothing works. I observed her for a few minutes and then said, "You carry yourself like someone who is lonely and seeking. Your energy is reaching outward, grasping, needing. This is the energy of lack, and it repels what you desire." "But I am lonely," she said. "How can I pretend I am not?" "I am not asking you to pretend," I replied. "I am asking you to act as if you are already deeply loved. How would you carry yourself if you were in a loving relationship? How would you speak? How would you move through the world?" I taught her to act as if she were already loved, to dress for herself as someone who felt cherished, to speak to herself with kindness as someone who was valued, to move through her days with the quiet confidence of someone who knew she was beloved. This was not pretending. This was tricking her subconscious mind into accepting a new identity. And when her subconscious accepted this identity of being a loved woman, it began to create circumstances that matched it. Within months, she met a man who was drawn to her confidence and self-assurance. Their relationship developed naturally because she was no longer radiating the desperate energy of lack. She had tricked her subconscious mind by acting as if her desire was already fulfilled, and her subconscious had made it so. Now, the master trick is persistence. All of these tricks are powerful, but they all depend on one master principle: persistence. Your subconscious mind is impressed not by occasional thoughts or fleeting feelings, but by persistent assumptions and consistent impressions. Think of your subconscious mind as a piece of clay. A single touch leaves barely a mark, but repeated pressure in the same place creates a lasting impression. Your job is to persistently impress upon your subconscious mind the reality you wish to experience until that impression becomes permanent. Most people fail at manifestation not because the principles do not work, but because they give up too soon. They try to trick their subconscious mind for a day, a week, maybe a month. But when they do not see immediate results, they abandon the new assumption and return to their old patterns of thought. But the subconscious mind is like a garden. Seeds planted today do not become visible plants tomorrow. There is an invisible period of growth happening beneath the surface. If you constantly dig up the seeds every few days to check if they are growing, you will prevent them from ever becoming plants. A young man came to me who wanted to become a successful writer. He had been working on his craft for years but had received nothing but rejections. "Maybe I am just not good enough," he said. "You have been impressing your subconscious mind with the assumption that you are not good enough," I replied. Every rejection you have accepted as evidence of your inadequacy has deepened that impression. You must now persist in a new assumption. I taught him to maintain the assumption consistently, regardless of continued rejections. Every morning he would assume the feeling of being a successful writer. Every evening he would remember his success as though it had already happened. Every time he wrote, he would write from the consciousness of someone whose work was valued and sought after. For 8 months, nothing changed in his external circumstances. He still received rejections. His conscious mind repeatedly suggested he was delusional, but he persisted in his assumption. Then suddenly, everything shifted. An editor who had previously rejected him reached out with interest in a different piece. That led to a publishing deal. Within a year, his book was successful, and he was receiving offers for more work. The trick had worked because he had persisted. His subconscious mind, after months of consistent impression, had finally accepted his new assumption as fact and created circumstances to match it. Let me leave you with this final understanding. You are not really tricking your subconscious mind in any deceptive sense. You are simply learning to communicate with it in its own language, bypassing the interference of the critical conscious mind. Your subconscious mind is not your enemy. It is your faithful servant, working every moment to create experiences that match your dominant assumptions and feelings. The problem is that most people have programmed this servant with limiting beliefs, fearful expectations, and negative self-concepts. When you learn to trick your subconscious mind, what you are really doing is deprogramming the old limitations and programming new possibilities. You are teaching this faithful servant to work for your desires rather than against them. So remember these tricks. Use the drowsy state to plant new impressions when conscious resistance is low. Imagine from your desire rather than of your desire to claim it as your reality. Revise past failures in imagination to change the patterns, creating your future. Speak the native language of feeling to communicate directly with your subconscious. Maintain the assumption of your desire being fulfilled regardless of current evidence. Act as if your desire is already fulfilled to send powerful behavioral signals to your subconscious. And persist in these practices until your new assumptions harden into fact. Your subconscious mind is the most powerful creative force in your life. It has been creating your experiences faithfully according to your assumptions, both conscious and unconscious. Now you have the knowledge to direct it consciously, deliberately, and powerfully. You do not need to convince your conscious mind that these techniques will work. Your conscious mind will doubt, question, and resist. But your subconscious mind will respond faithfully to whatever you persistently impress upon it with feeling and conviction. So tonight, as you drift off to sleep, use that precious drowsy state to plant the seeds of your desires. Imagine from the end of your wish fulfilled. Generate the feeling of having what you desire. Assume it is already yours. And then persist in this assumption day after day, night after night, until your faithful subconscious servant has no choice but to create in your outer world what you have consistently impressed upon your inner world. Your subconscious mind is waiting to be directed. It is ready to serve your highest good. You now know the tricks to communicate with it effectively. Use them well, use them faithfully, and watch as your entire life transforms to match the new impressions you have planted in the fertile garden of your subconscious mind. Thank you and good evening. As always, thank you for joining me on this journey into the depths of consciousness. Remember, you are not here by accident. You are here because your soul is ready for this truth. Take these teachings and let them transform not just your mind, but your entire reality. Until we meet again in consciousness, keep assuming your greatness and living from the end of your desires. This is Neville Lectures. I'll see you again in the next video.